Hello, everybody. I don't know. I need to know if you can hear me because I've got a little bit of a new setup. And I haven't gone live in so long, I can't even remember. Um, so I appreciate all of you being here. And I don't see anything in the chat. Okay, let me see. Let me put something in the chat. Where are you from? Let's just see if it comes up. Okay, so I see myself in the chat. So feel free to introduce yourself and to let us know where you're viewing from today if you're catching me live. And if not, just post it in the comments below underneath the video. But anyway, it's been a little while. And my hair's not all fixed and my makeup's not all fixed because I have been working all morning. Anyway, if you are new to the channel or to the video and don't know anything about me, first of all, thank you so much for joining and watching the video. And I'll just give you a quick background of how this channel got started and what it's for and who it's supposed to help. So my name's Leo, and in 2017, I lost my husband to cancer. And sorry, my phone is coming through now, so I've got to turn that off. So let's see. Yeah, my husband got cancer in 2017. He was diagnosed and then he passed away in about 4 months later. I'm going to turn this phone all the way off because suddenly everybody wants to text me. And, I haven't had a text all day until now. So at the time that my husband got sick, we had 4 children still at home. My oldest one was 19. My youngest one was 6. And since then, it has been over 7 years. And since then, I have remarried, and 3 of my 4 children have grown up and moved out of the house. And so I just have the one left, and she's 14 now. She's in 9th grade. And so that's where we are. But today, what I wanted to talk about, I'm going to start a new series, and it's going to be every Monday for right now. As long as this time frame works, it's going to be every Monday at noon Eastern time. I'm just going to go live and call it Lunch with Leo, and I'm going to try to come up with a topic that is something that has affected me in my life, maybe for that week, or something that I've heard of in the news, or something that has kind of made me think about things from a widow's perspective, and then just share it with you, and then see if anybody else wants to join in the chat, ask questions, share their experiences and things like that. And then once the live stream is over, then it'll just be posted up on YouTube for anybody else to watch later. So today is day 1. For those of you who followed me for a while, you probably are wondering how I'm able to be here on a Monday at noon, because I was a school teacher. Notice I said the word was. And so that's actually the topic of today's YouTube video, is that I wanted to talk about how not just my life has changed, because I did post a video recently about how my life has changed in the 7 years that I've become a widow, but I kind of wanted to talk about how my goals have changed, and maybe try to think about why that has happened, and what that means for me, and just kind of dissect it a little bit, and just try to figure things out, and just share with you how it has affected my life, how being a widow and grief has affected my life, my goals, my job, my role as a wife, a mother, a person in society, just all of those things. I do see we have some people coming in from Central Florida. Can't hear me yet. You see me and hear me. Okay. I'm just showing loading. Must be the internet catching me live. Okay, yay. So hopefully everything's good now and everybody can hear me, because if I've been talking for 5 minutes and nobody can hear me, that's a bad thing. And I'm looking at my hair, and I thought it was kind of calmed down, but listen, I've been working in my basement all morning, so I just did not want to put this off. But welcome to those who are coming in. I don't know if I recognize any of the people, but it's been so long. Usually I see a lot of the same people and profiles and things like that, but like I said, it's been so long. So now I probably have a lot of new people coming following along. But this week I've just been thinking about things because, I was thinking about my job. I was a school teacher, and I started teaching in 1998 before I had even met my late husband. I did have my daughter. She was 1, and I was a single mom. And I met my husband that first year that I was teaching, and we were married the year after that. So, and I haven't taught every single year, but I stayed home here and there to have kids and stay home when the babies were little. And my husband was in the military, and so he deployed some. And so on and off, it's been 26 years that I've been teaching, but not every single year because I've taken off some time here and there. There was a few times where I got burned out and I was like, I'm never teaching again. I'm done with this. And then we'd need money and I would go back and start teaching again. So, uh, but finally, I moved around with being a military wife. It was hard for me to stick to one job because we were never in one place. So as a matter of fact, the first 9 years that I taught, I was at 9 different schools. So I was a new teacher every single year for 9 years. And, that was tough. And so finally, right before Dewey got sick, we moved to a place where he was already out of the military. He had been out on a medical, so he was already on disability, not related to his cancer. It was just a lot of other things that he had been disabled from that was service connected to his Army. And finally, he said, you followed me around all these years for my job. He said, now it's time for me to follow you for your job. And so I finally found a teaching position that I really liked in an area that we really liked. And I was like, wow, I can finally teach somewhere and stay there and maybe retire there, like more than 1 year at a time, stay there for a while, develop my career, maybe move up and into administration or to leadership or something like that. And so I was there at the same school for 4 years in a row. It was the only time I had ever worked somewhere for so many years in a row. And I'm trying to think before then if I had even worked anywhere for more than 1 year in a row. And I don't think I had. So I was pretty proud of that fact. I was finally like, yes, I stayed here and this is where I'm going to stay. And this is where, and I loved it. It was a great school. The pay was good for teacher pay. I mean, teacher pay always sucks, but it was good for teacher pay. I liked the people. I liked the students. I liked the community. I mean, it was like everything had finally come home to roost. We were finally in a place where we could start saving some money. We were trying to think about buying a house and just all these things. And then in that second year second or third year, now I can't even remember, but it was sometime in that time period when I was working there that he got sick. And then when he died, it was during summer vacation. So when I came back from that summer vacation, I was still working full time, and I tried to work full time that year, and I did, but it did not go very well. So that was the beginning of how my goals started to change because I was a widow. Because I went from my husband was at home with the kids all the time, and all I had to do was go to work and come home. He was like the housewife, if you want to call it that, because he didn't work. So he would taking care of the kids. The kids were all in school, but like he was taking care of the laundry. He was taking care of the house. He was taking care of like driving kids from here to there. And he was a great disciplinarian because he had been a drill sergeant in the military and he was not afraid to, make them walk the line. And so I didn't really have to worry about juggling a whole lot of stuff. Like I said, I went to work and I came home. And then we did our family thing. But after he died, I mean, you know how it goes, especially if you have minor kids still at home. Suddenly you go from just being one half of a parenting team to being the whole parenting team. So I was working full time, trying to make sure all the bills were paid, trying to make sure the kids were getting to school and they were going to school everywhere and all these things, trying to make sure everybody's getting to their sporting events, trying to make sure that I'm disciplining them the way that I'm supposed to, trying to make sure the house is being kept up. I mean, it's everything. I'm juggling everything. And I still had the 4 kids at home. My oldest daughter was, she was older, so she could help me a little bit, but it was still tough. So, and on top of that, my children were grieving the loss of their dad, which when I first became widowed, it did not dawn on me how hard it would be to raise grieving children. And I found since then that has been the hardest part of being a widow is raising children who have lost their parent. grieving children, because they don't grieve in the same way that grown-ups do, and they don't grieve in the same way as each other, and they have to be taught how to appropriately manage their emotions and show their emotions and express their emotions. And if they're not taught appropriate behaviors for that, they make up their own behaviors on how to do it because that's all they know to do. And had I known it was going to be that difficult, I would have put them in counseling way before, probably before he even died, so that they could have helped them transition to that grief and given them acceptable ways of expressing their emotions and helping them to work through those feelings and things. But I didn't know they were going to need that kind of help. And so I didn't. And in the beginning, it seemed like it was the calm before the storm. So I thought, okay, well, this isn't as volatile as I thought it was going to be. So I think we're going to be okay. And little did I know, 6 to 12 months after he died was the time when the proverbial shit hit the fan, and it was not pretty. And so, as a result, and I was trying to think about how many times I've changed jobs in the last 7 years since he died. And so, and why? Okay. Cause it sounds really bad when I say it. I think I've had 5 different teaching positions since in the 7 years since he died. And that sounds so flaky. And it's hard to explain that off, on a resume until you go into an interview. And then as soon as you tell them that your husband died and you've been trying to raise your kids, or they don't ask any more questions. They're like, oh, okay. Yeah, we understand. So the first job change that I had was I needed to go part-time. I still needed to make money for the bills, but I had some life insurance. And so I had a little bit to help me. And the kids were getting some money from Social Security due to his disability and his death. And so I had that a little bit to help me. So I really just needed some money, but I knew I could probably go part-time. And that way I could devote some more time to being a parent. Because as a full-time teacher, I was being a crappy teacher because I didn't have enough in me, to do a good job as a full-time teacher. And I was being a crappy mom because I did not have enough time or energy or motivation or knowledge or experience to be a good parent as well. So I was on both sides, I was failing. And so I thought, well, maybe if I can go part-time, I can still devote some time to my job, but I can still devote more time to my children who need me and still be able to maybe pay the bills. So I asked my job if I could go part-time, and they said no. And they said, basically, if you need part-time, then you need to get another job. Okay. So I still worked in the same place, but I went to another school across town that just so happened to be hiring that next year for a part-time position in the exact job that I was already doing. So it was perfect. I was a special ed math teacher at the high school, and they needed a part-time special ed math teacher at their high school. So it's just, it's divine intervention. So I went to a new job. And then we moved to a new house. It was just a few miles away, but still it was a new job. So new teachers, new place, everything. So I did that for a little while. And then my youngest daughter, who was going to the middle school right next door to where I was teaching, started having some behaviors, and she started just struggling. She's been struggling ever since he died, to be honest. She hasn't managed her emotions very well, and on top of that, it's just hard to be a teenager right now in this world with all of social media and all of this anxiety. And it's just stressful for teens in general. So for teens who've lost their dad, it's even tougher. And so I ended up having to leave that job in the middle of the school year so that I could come home and be with her. And so I took a job as an online teacher, and she came home and became an online student. So I did that, and that was terrible. The school was awful. It was not run very well. The pay was awful. It was just horrible. And in that amount of time, my daughter was doing a little better. So I was like, okay, I'll try to go back to a regular school. Well, I couldn't go back to my old job anywhere in that county because, number one, I had moved. And although I was willing to drive, they were not willing to take me back because I had already broken contract once, and they knew why. And I had, it's due to a child that was causing me some issues. And I still had the child who could potentially still cause me issues. And so even though I applied to many times to go back, I was never called back, even though you would think a special ed math teacher would be what they call a unicorn. But so that bridge had been burned, not by my choice, but just had happened. So I took a job in a local school at the high school here in the town, real close to where we live. Well, little did I know that school was horrible. It was just absolutely terrible. Just I can't even tell you how bad it was. But if you watched any videos during that time from 2 years ago and you heard me complain, it was just the students were bad, the administration was bad. I liked my coworkers, but all of us were in the same boat together. We could not control the students because the admin did not give us any kind of, it was nothing. I was getting cussed out on a regular basis. I was getting threatened and told that I couldn't send a student out of my room even if they threatened to kill me. Like I had a student that had it out for me that kept threatening to kill me and was like trying to fashion weapons in the classroom to stab me with, and would run up to me and would pretend like he was going to punch me, and he would stop right before he got to my face. And so it's just like a stressful situation. It was so bad that I came home crying almost every day. And so, but I feel like I could have afforded to quit, but I was just scared because by that time I was remarried. And so I did not I did not renew my contract at that school. But it just so happens that they had a position at the middle school next door, and they needed a department chair leader, a lead teacher for the special ed department. That just so happened it wasn't a teaching position. It was just, you just manage all the meetings, you manage all the paperwork, you manage all the teachers, you do all the things. You're the department chair, but you don't have to teach any classes. It was perfect. And I was like, I will take that job. So the next school year I went to that. So that's another change, but that was for a promotion and to get out of a bad situation. And so I was there for about a month. And in that amount of time, my daughter, once again, just was going through it. And she got in trouble at school, and she was getting suspended, and she got suspended again. Like she was just getting in trouble. And they kept saying, if it happens again, we're going to expel her, or we're going to send her to the alternative school. And there's no way in hell I was going to send her to the alternative school. So I was like, she's got to come back home again, and I've got to be with her. So again, I had to break contract. Like in the first month of school, I had to leave. Well, luckily I was able to go back to that online school that I had taught at before that sucked really bad, but at least it was a job, and at least it was at home, and it was online. And they had a whole new changeover of administration, a new HR section and all that. And I thought, well, maybe it'll be a little better. It was not. And so I worked there for a year, and it was just, besides the word terrible, I just keep saying it was terrible, but it was pretty terrible. The workload was awful. And you would think, how hard can it be to work from home when you're on your computer? But it was just a lot of paperwork. And I was working 10 or 12 hours a day for an 8-hour job. And I still couldn't be mom, even though my daughter was right here. And she was a student at the same school where I was teaching online, but it just wasn't working. And so, and when I expressed some of my issues with my principal, and gave some suggestions on how they might be able to improve things for teachers, like maybe you could try this or this or this. Well, she basically said, no, that's impossible to do any of those things, which is not. And then she told me that when I told her the workload, she asked me why I wasn't coming back. And I said, well, the workload was too much. And she said, well, that sounds like a you problem. And then she suggested that I attend some additional training on time management, as if me not being able to handle my time was the problem. So I told her that no matter how you pour 10 gallons of water into a 5-gallon bucket, it's going to spill out. And learning how to pour it in a different way is not going to keep it from spilling out. She didn't like that very much. So needless to say, I did not return. And I didn't even have a plan to do anything else. I just did not. I finished out the year, but I did not sign another contract. So that brings us up to this year. So you see how I'm doing. I'm still teaching. I'm still doing math and special ed and all that. but I'm not able to juggle my job and my parenting. And so then it just so happens that right across the street is where we attend church is a Christian school, and they needed a part-time seventh grade math teacher, mornings, 3 classes. And I was like, this is perfect. How hard can it be? It's not even special ed. It's just regular. Just teach the lesson 3 times and go home. But that's not exactly how it ended up going. And so I'm a little bit of an overachiever and a perfectionist. And so spending a lot of time with lesson plans, a lot of time making copies, a lot of time researching. Plus I had to learn seventh grade math. I mean, it's not that I can't learn it, but like I've never actually taught seventh grade math. So I was having to learn the curriculum. And I was doing some things. I was trying to do some creative things with the students, like have them do the lesson at home and then have them practice the problems at school with me. And the principal did not like that. She said the parents would not like that. And so she told me I had to go back to traditional teaching. So I had to change everything that I was trying to do. And it was just exhausting. And honestly, and those students that I had at the very end this year were so awesome. I mean, they're 12 and they're wild and they're crazy and silly, and they drain every bit of you, but they were so sweet and nice, and I did care about them a lot. But I did not have enough energy in me to give all of my patience and attention to them. And then coming home, I didn't have anything left to give to my husband or to give to my daughter, who was still at home doing schoolwork at home. And while I was away, she was not really doing the schoolwork like she was supposed to. She's doing other things that she wasn't supposed to do. I don't want to talk about all the details, but let's just say she had access to her phone because that was her only means of communication while she was by herself. And she was not using her phone to communicate with me. Okay. She just was using her phone for other things. So that's how that ended up being. So, and to be honest, when you go down to a part-time position and the pay is terrible anyway, and it was no benefits, I didn't have any health insurance, and have any retirement, and have anything putting into, like, they're not even taking out Social Security. The pay is already so low, it's not really that hard to replace. And so, um, I wasn't under contract. So, I mean, it was like a regular job. You didn't have to, you didn't have to go through contract. You just had to give a 2-week notice, like a regular normal job, if you couldn't do it. So at first I was like, I'll make it through the year. And then I was like, maybe I'll just make it through the semester till Christmas. And then I was like, I just can't, I can't do it. I can't do it anymore. And I talked to my husband about it. We prayed about it a lot, and we just decided it was just not worth it for me to try to just hold on. And so I put in my notice, and last Friday was my last day teaching ever. Like, I'm done. I'm done. And on top of that, and I know all the details are probably boring you, but before I even started, once Dewey died, like sorry about the dog barking. Once Dewey died, my love for teaching kind of went away. My passion for helping students and all those things that I had done for so many years, it just wasn't there anymore. Like, I just wasn't feeling it anymore. Like, I care about the kids, but at the same time, I just had this heavy burden on me. And, the getting through the days is just that much harder. It's hard enough to get through a rough day, but it's even harder to get through a rough day when you're dealing with the loss of a spouse and dealing with grieving kids who've lost their dad, and they come to you and they're crying about they miss daddy so much, and you don't know what to tell them. And then they have to go to therapy and counseling, and you're trying to find a good counselor for them. And it's like you're juggling all these things, and all of it goes back to the root of being a widow. And so I was just thinking about that. I felt, at first I thought I was so ashamed because I haven't been able to hold down a steady job, since he died. And then I started thinking that, you know what, some of those changes that I made were out of necessity for me to be a parent to my child. And being a parent has to come first before being a worker. And so, but I'm fortunate though, because I have remarried, and my husband is able to make enough money to mostly support us. And then I just have to supplement just a little bit in order for us to be able to make ends meet now. And hopefully we'll be able to do that. The verdict is still out. And so I'm working my butt off. I'm down in our basement. If you've seen my other channel, the serial crafting channel, my basement is like a crafting hoarder's paradise. But I'm trying to straighten it up. I'm trying to, grow that channel. I'm trying to sell off a lot of my old fabric and yarn and supplies and things like that. I'm also trying to add some more inventory in so that I can sell some things on eBay. So I'm just trying to be like a reseller, trying to grow this channel. I would really like to help other widows to, to manage life after the loss of their spouse. And I know there's a lot of people out there who need a lot of help. And I feel like I could help them, but I haven't had the time. I haven't had the energy. And I suffer from ADHD. And so I have all these grand plans and that one day syndrome, like one day I'm going to do this. And one day I'm going to start doing coaching classes. And one day I'm going to have this big website. And one day I'm going to do all these, I'm going to make all these courses. And one day just never comes for people with ADHD. And so I'm having to deal with that too. And the funny thing is I've had ADHD my whole life, but it wasn't diagnosed. I've always just suspected it. And I thought, well, I probably have ADHD as a joke. But I was able to manage it. But the funny thing is that when I became widowed, my grief kind of took over. Like I had to focus so much of my attention on grieving that I was unable to manage my life anymore with my ADHD. And so I finally went to the doctor. I did not even get diagnosed with my ADHD until I was 47. And I finally started taking medication. And that has helped a lot. And, but I know myself as much as I hate to admit things about myself, but I know that if I just say, I'm going to do this, and this one day, that's not going to work. I have to say, I'm going to do this at 12 o'clock on Monday. Hence, we're here doing live sessions on every Monday, Lunch with Leo at noon. Because number one, that gives me a suspense date. It gives me a time and a place to be somewhere that I can't put off. Like a job. This is why I can do a job very well, because I know I have to be up and at my job at a certain time, and I'm never late, and I'm always early. I'm always prepared. I'm always, I give the best that I can. So I have to make my self-employment like a real job. I have to give myself suspense dates. I have to give myself appointments. I have to make a schedule I have to do certain tasks at certain times, because otherwise I'll sit and say, yeah, I need to go down there and clean up. And then I'll sit and watch YouTube all day. And I know myself. So that's going to benefit all of you, because that means I'm going to go back to weekly videos of being uploaded every Monday at noon. And another reason why I'm doing live streams is a couple of different reasons. I can, we got somebody from Oklahoma and somebody from Washington and somebody else here catching live. You can second that motion. You're still struggling after 3 years and no living children. So yeah, it's like, and somebody from the UK. Hello. But yeah, so you guys are saying, yeah, I can relate, because it's almost like your grief changes. You learn how to live with the grief. I'm not saying you like it, and I'm not saying it doesn't hurt or anything like that, but you do get stronger and you do get more able to deal with the grief and the feelings, because it becomes routine and you just learn how to cope. But it still affects you, and it still affects your goals and your emotions and your desires and what you want to do with yourself and how you create your schedule. And then you have to decide things like, well, I had all these goals with my husband. We wanted to go on vacation, or we wanted to get an RV and be, travel, or we wanted to go on cruises, or whatever it was that you had goals with your spouse, right? You had goals that you thought you were going to do when you grew old, and you were going to do these things. Then when your spouse dies, suddenly you have this dilemma, and you're like, so are my goals the same? Do I plan to do the same things that I was planning to do with my husband and just do it by myself? Or do I change plans completely and do something that I really want to do that maybe my husband wouldn't have really wanted to do, but since he's not here, that's really what I want to do. Or I would like to do those things that I was going to do with my husband, but now that I'm by myself, I don't want to travel in an RV by myself, or I don't want to go on cruises by myself, or I don't want to go to movies and shows and whatever it is you're going to do, maybe you don't want to do it by yourself. And so now you have to figure out that like what do I have the same goals? Do I want to have the same goals? Do I need to change goals? And then every time, thank you for the crafting channel. I'll list that in just a moment. But y- every time I have realized this, as far as me goes, and a lot of people that I've gotten feedback from on the Widow channel, that every time I change, like I shift gears to do something else in life, like maybe I make strides in my grief journey, or maybe I just change goals in my life or whatever. But anytime you move forward into a new phase, it always comes with some guilt, because something in the back of your mind says, yep, this is just another step towards moving yourself away from your life with your husband. And so there's always some guilt involved whenever you, transition into a new thing. So if you decide to make new goals for yourself, a lot of times you're going to feel guilty about that, because you're thinking, well, I'm doing something that would make me happy. But the only reason why I'm doing that is because I'm by myself, because my husband died. And so you have um, you have to process that grief and that guilt and all those feelings that come along with changing all of your goals. But I'm here to tell you this. If you're keeping your same goals that you had with your spouse only because you feel bad, because you don't want to change your goals, because you feel like um, that would be like disrespecting his memory in some way, but you really kind of want to do something else, but you feel guilty because you don't want to disrespect that, don't feel guilty about that. Okay. Your life is different now. Not that you wanted it to be, but it just is. And so you've got to manage your life in the best way that you can. And part of that means doing the things that make you happy, even if it's different things than you would have done when your husband was still alive. And so I can't tell you don't feel guilty, because you're going to anyway, but I'm just saying that even if you feel guilty, if it's something you would prefer to do, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and change those goals to be something that you want to do, whether it be tweak the same goals or just make completely different goals. Some people want to move out of their house because they have all these memories with their spouse, which is kind of nice, but at the same time, it reminds them of their spouse all the time, and it makes them sad, and they want a change of atmosphere. So they want to move, but they feel guilty because they had their life with their spouse and they feel bad about leaving this house. And so like I said, every time there's a change in your life, it always comes along with a piece of guilt. Um, and so the name of the crafting channel is called Serial Crafting. Serial, like SERIAL, Serial Crafting. And it doesn't have a whole lot of videos up there yet, because yet again, it's another one of those things that I keep putting on my plate and couldn't get to. But the last couple of videos that I have, that I've only posted a few in the last year, but you will see my basement and how awful it is, because I'm just laying it bare so that I can show you the process of me cleaning it up, and then you can see it later, but it's still not cleaned up yet. So if you want to go see like the basement of a crafting hoarding person, then you go ahead and go to that channel and check it out. So Jackie says, I was a special ed preschool para. After my husband's passing, I lost all desire to return. I had left after 17 years with the kids to be his caregiver. I lost all focus. So exactly. So Jackie, you know what I'm talking about. It's like your focus is just on something else. You're just like, everything kind of has when you watch something on TV and there's like a sad scene, and the whole coloring of the scene kind of turns, the color kind of fades out. It looks sort of a grayish, and everything's kind of dark lighting. And so it's almost like your whole life becomes like that. And then you spend the rest of however long trying to search for that brightness again, those bright colors and those, the sunshine and the light. And then when you finally do see those rays of sunshine sometimes, or sometimes you see the light and you see the bright colors again, immediately you start feeling guilty, because you're like, how dare I feel happy again? Because how can I sit here and laugh at that joke when my husband's dead? Like, you go through all those thoughts. And it's part of the process of healing through your grief. And you're never going to heal completely, but you do heal in a certain kind of way. And so I've realized that instead of being sad about the fact that I've changed all these jobs since my husband died, I have to just realize it's just part of what has happened. And I hate, and if you've watched my videos, you know that I hate that term, the new normal, but I still use that term because it's the most accurate. The reason why I hate it is because I know it's true, but I don't like it. How some people don't even want to call themselves a widow because they don't like the way it sounds, but yet they still are. And so, give me a second. So I had to just come to grips with the fact that it's okay if I don't want to teach anymore. Like, it's okay if I don't have that same desire to help these students anymore. And part of the reason why I don't have the desire to help the students is because, number one, the students don't care anything about learning math. I mean, that's just the truth. Math is tough for most kids, and they don't like it, and it's hard to teach them because they're not interested in it. And number two, kids are disrespectful, and I mean, not all of them, but there's just a level of disrespect that students would not have even thought of crossing before that they do now. And again, not all of them, but like when I first started teaching in the late 90s, if some student would have said "F you, bitch" to a teacher, like, they would have been probably expelled from school. Like, everybody would have stopped and went, and just like silence. But it was just thrown out there it, like saying good morning. like and it was just become like just this level of disrespect to teachers. There's no authority anymore. There's just no fear of repercussions or discipline or anything like that. So the point I'm making is that even the students that I had that wanted to learn, that were there to learn, they couldn't do it because they were being overpowered by all of the bad behaviors and the disrespect that was going on. And so why would you want to teach a group of people, whether they're young people or not, who can't stand you because you're trying to make them do something they don't want to do? All you want to do is get them off their phones, and that's all they want to do is be on their phones. And so, you know how hard it is to want to keep going back every single day and try to help people and teach people and have them learn something that they need to learn. And even if it's not all the math, I didn't give a rip about how much math they learned. I wanted them to learn some life skills, like respect other people, speak to others with respect, or show up on time, or, finish your work with a deadline, those kinds of things. But they weren't learning that. And then I'd go to the Widow channel, I'd go to the videos, and I'd go to the Facebook group that we have. By the way, if you're not already a member of the Facebook group, make sure you go there. I will have a link in the description below that has a link to the Facebook group. But I would help these people on the Facebook group who were there voluntarily. They wanted to learn, they wanted help, and they respected my opinion, and they wanted to hear what I had to say. And what a change that was. I mean, how refreshing is that? And not to toot my own horn, but like you're not, it's still not a high paying job. It's not like it's not like the YouTube channel is paying me a whole lot of money, but to be appreciated and to have people say that I watched your video and it helped me so much. That is the kind of response that you would like to get from a student when you first start teaching. When your kid says, "Oh my gosh, I finally understand. Thank you for helping me." And that's just not happening anymore. But then you go to these, I go to these widows communities, and I have people that email me and say, "Thank you so much for this video or for these resources. It's helped me so much." And I think, gosh, if I hadn't done that, would they have gotten that help from someone else? I mean, maybe they would have, but it's just nice to feel appreciated for a change. And it's not all about me. I like to be able to help people, but I didn't feel like I was helping anybody in the schools anymore. Like, I just felt like I was fighting with them all the time, and I was going somewhere where they did not want me to be. They were not happy to see me. And to be honest, after a while, I wasn't happy to see them. I'd sit in the car and I had to talk myself into, pep myself up to be able to go to school because these kids were just so disrespectful and just nasty. And so, like I said, I really wanted to just focus on helping people that want to be helped, whether it be widows who want help with their grief journey, or whether it be people who want help crafting so that we can, figure out how to do some crafting projects together. And maybe some of those might be the same people. I mean, I think there might be some widows that might like to crochet or that might like to sew, and they might be interested in having a sew along or a craft along or a crochet along, or might want to buy some of my supplies that I have down there that I'm getting ready to sell off. And so I really just want to focus on helping people that want to be helped. That's basically the gist of it. And so today is my first day officially as a full-time self-employed person. And I did not want to waste another day. I knew that I wanted to get on this lunch with Leo at 12 o'clock. And I knew I did not want to put it off, because if I put it off the first day, then I'd be more likely to put it off the second one and the third one, and then just keep saying, oh, next week, next week, next week. I didn't have makeup on. I had not fixed my hair. And I said, I don't care. I'm going on there because I seriously doubt somebody's going to come on here and say, well, she has a lot of good stuff to say, but her hair is terrible. I just cannot watch her. So not that you want to come on looking frumpy all the time, but at the same time, I cannot use not having my hair just so and not having my makeup just so as an excuse to not come on and try to help somebody that might need to hear what I have to say today or any other time. I'm going to go back and look over the chat and just see if there's any questions or comments that I want to address. Somebody from New Jersey, Staffordshire, UK. And I did talk about the crafting channel, originally UK, most of my adult life in Japan. So interesting. My son has been talking about maybe wanting to go to Japan. That scares me to death because I cannot afford to fly to Japan to visit him. And so I know if he moves to Japan that I probably won't see him very much, unless he moves back. But how interesting that you decided to live there, and let me know if it's something that you have enjoyed. Let's see. How right you are, Leo. I can relate. Coming up to 4 years. Thank you. 1 month a widow, love dressmaking and crafting, but no mojo. Yes, Meryl, let me tell you, I had bought some brand new sewing machines right before Dewey got sick. And there's a couple of them that are still in the box. And so that means it's been almost 8 years and I still haven't taken a lot of my stuff out. As a matter of fact, I've only sewn like one thing since he died, and he died in 2017. And the only reason why I sewed then was because my daughter was getting married and my younger daughter was going to be a bridesmaid in her wedding, and she had a dress that needed to be hemmed. And also my daughter who was getting married wanted to take my old veil and have me repurpose it into a new veil for her. And she specifically wanted me to make it for her. And so, and she also wanted me to alter her dress, but thank God I didn't have to do that because I'm not really into alterations too much. And a wedding dress is it's a high stakes thing, and it's not fun. I don't like to do alterations. So, but that's the only time I've sewn is to do that. And it was a chore. It wasn't even fun. But I will say this, that I have started to clean up my sewing room because I really do want to get back in there and sew. And I finally got my sewing machine out, which is a brand new sewing machine that I had not ever even used. It was brand new. It was out of the box, but I had not even plugged it in. And I was getting ready to sit down. I was like, okay, I'm going to get all this stuff out. I'm going to finally take this it's a Juki. It's a really nice one. And I'm going to sew something. I don't care if it's a pillowcase. I'm just going to sew something. And I could not find the pedal. I've not even used it. It's packed up somewhere. Obviously, this was not packed up with the machine. I couldn't find the pedal. And I was like, okay, how hard can it be to find a pedal for this thing? It's probably some generic whatever. Well, it's not. So I was like, I'll just buy a pedal. The pedal is $99. And I'm like, no, I think I'm just going to keep looking. It's in a box somewhere. I know it's not gone. It's just, if you saw how many boxes was down there. So I still haven't sewn. I've crocheted a couple of things, just a couple, and I've made a few shirts, and that's really it. But I really would like to, to get back into it because it is therapeutic. But if you don't have the mojo, if you don't have the desire, then what's the point? But I know that if I finally start getting into it, I will enjoy it. It's just that putting it off. And and here's another story about crafting and grief. I was going to teach myself how to knit. I was like, I've crocheted for over 40 years. And I was like, I'm going to learn how to knit. So I'm starting to learn how to knit, and I was going to make a pair of socks. So I buy my yarn, I get my little knitting needles, and I start learning how to knit. And I'm knitting this sock, and I get maybe a fourth of the way through. And in that meantime was when Dewey got sick. And so I thought, okay, while I'm sitting here in hospice with him, waiting for him to die, basically, I mean, I hate to say it that way, but that's what you're doing. I was like, I'll just start knitting. And so I didn't get very far. I got like this far on the knitting sock. And that was it. And it's not like you're really sitting there. There's people coming in and out. You're signing all these papers. You're trying to spend as much time with them as you can when they're awake and all these things. And when he went to hospice, he was only there for 10 days. And so needless to say, he died, and I never touched that knitting sock again, but I still have it. I have the piece of the sock. I have it connected to the little ball, and I have the little circular needles like poked into it. And it's just in this little whatever. And it's like a trigger for me. Like every time I look at it, I'm like, yep, that's what I was working on in hospice when he died. And due to that, that's a trigger that I can't get past. Like, I don't think I'll ever knit, because every time I start to knit, I start to think that's when he was dying. And so I don't think I will be able to do that. It's just too much of a trigger for me. Exactly 100%. Hey, Leo from Arkansas, year 7, widowed on Friday this week. So, Rhonda, yes, Rhonda is one of my OG Facebook people. So thank you for coming back, Rhonda. Congratulations. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan for 3 years in the early 90s. Oh, wow. So early 90s is when I graduated from high school. I went to teach and got married here. I'm glad I'm here now. Awesome. Awesome. And I love Okinawa. So I'm gonna have to tell my son about that. So he hasn't decided. He's only 19, but he's trying to think about what he wants to do with his life and stuff. Idea Factory. Sewing is my focus for November. This is Preptober. Preptober. There you go. Well, what I'm hoping is that maybe I really would like to start a widow community. And I've been talking about it for about 2 years, but it's one of those things that I put it on my list to do and I never get around to it. But now that I'm not working outside the home, I think I'll be able to. And what I want to do is I have the website. I'm getting ready to move my website over to a new server that I will be able to have a community, and it won't be Facebook. It'll be totally private. So all these trolls and stuff and all these people who, how trolls come into these widow groups and mostly it's men, and they try to pick you up and all that will be out. But I would like to have different things like recipe sharing or craft along things, or reading club, and just different kind of aspects, and like just kind of have a community of widows that we can come together and do some things to keep our minds off of grief, and just to be able to connect with each other without having the elephant in the room about talking about your husband that died or your wife or whatever. Let's see. I've been making hot pads and dishcloths and writing fun things for me. Awesome. Me too, Margaret. It's an amazing duty assignment. Glad to be retired now. So, okay. So some people have been over to Japan. That's very interesting. Learn to fill a bobbin. I've been using pre-filled ones. Oh, interesting. Now I use pre-filled bobbins for my embroidery machine, because that helps with the tension, because it's all the same. But I've always just filled my own bobbins on my sewing machine, because I always want to be able to choose the color of the thread so that it would match the best that I could. So I do decorative painting when the mojo is there. It's hard because Michael loved watching me paint. Yeah. So Kathy, that's kind of what I was talking about before. It's like things that you did before that made you happy. Sometimes that happiness is mixed with those memories, and it's almost triggering. So it's almost like you have to just do something. You either have to change it up a little bit, or you have to find something different, just to try to give yourself a fresh start, make new memories on new things that weren't there before. So they're not kind of tied with that sad past, if that's, something you want to try to avoid. And so anyway, that's my goal. If anybody is interested, there are a few people who are crafting. So if you're watching and you are interested in picking up on some of my sewing and yarn, I am destashing a huge amount. Like honestly, I used to have a fabric shop. So I have probably 6,000 yards of fabric or more. And maybe half of it is quilting cottons. And then the rest is fashion knits and things like that. But I have started selling my quilting cottons on Whatnot. And so if you know what Whatnot is, oh man, let me tell you, it's like eBay and Amazon and a home shopping network all mixed into one. So Whatnot is an online auction site, and it's live auction. So it's not like eBay where you do the auctions and you wait and you see the listings. It's like you see somebody, you would see me on the camera talking, holding up fabric or holding up yarn, and and people bid on whatever it is that you have. And so I've been selling my fabric for the past several weeks, doing and I've sold some yarn too. And the nice thing is that you get a really good price because they're rock bottom prices because you're just trying to get rid of whatever you have. And it gets shipped right away. Like as soon as I finish with my auctions, I pack up whatever I just sold and I ship it the next day. And so people are getting their stuff like within a couple days. And shipping is real cheap because they have a like a deal with the post office. So you can get you can get any size flat rate box, even a large flat rate box, and the shipping is only $8.77. I can put like 25 yards of fabric in a large flat rate box. And you can get that shipped for $8.77. Cannot beat that. So if anybody is interested, and even if you come and you don't bid on anything, you can still come in like this, and it's sort of like a live. There's a chat. You can chat with each other and with me, and it's kind of like this, but you're buying stuff at the same time. And so if you are interested in just checking it out, I will put a link in the description. I don't have it, like I can't do it in the chat right now, but when you come back to this, you can look in the description below, and I will have a link to where you can register. It's free to register on Whatnot. But when you register with the link that I give you, it'll give you $15 free credit that you can use on, and it doesn't even have to be mine. You can go on any of the live auctions and use your $15 to make your first purchase. Now I don't think you can make multiple purchases with it. So like you got to get as close to 15 bucks as you can. Cause like if you buy a $5 item and you use your $5 from your 15, I don't think it lets you take that 10 and use it again. Like it's a one-time thing, but up to $15. But if you come in and you want to buy like a couple yards of fabric, you come in and use your $15 and you can get it basically for free. So I will leave that link below if anybody's interested in registering. Like I said, it doesn't cost anything. But I'm pretty sure they do ask you to put your credit card in, because when you go to bid on something, when you bid on it and you're the winner, it automatically like charges your card. Like you purchase it when you bid, you're getting ready to purchase it right away. So they go ahead and swipe your card so that you can have it purchased, so that the person can go ahead and ship it out. But it is legit. I've been using it for several weeks. I've been purchasing with it. Try not to buy too much stuff because I'm trying to sell, but I've been selling quite a lot. And for right now, I have a standing 7 p.m. on Friday nights when I'm selling my fabric. I might have to change that though, because Friday nights is late and Saturdays is early. And trying to get my stuff packed by the next day to get it out has been tough. But as of right now, 7 p.m. on Fridays is when I'm doing my fabrics. And I think I'm going to start doing 3 or 4 of them a week. So yes. Oh, and Kathy, yeah, you can sell your paintings. Listen, if you want to sell on Whatnot, I have, let me know. I have a referral code as well for you to become a seller. You have to apply to become a seller, and there is a vetting process. And so it's not like an automatic, but if you use someone else's link that they give you, like another seller's link, it kind of boosts you up to the front of the line, and it makes it more likely for you to be accepted as a seller. So I have a referral code as well that you can use if you want to apply to become a seller. There's people who go on there and they, like, if you like to paint, you could go on there and paint live, and you could go on and take requests and say, what do you want me to paint? And then you could paint while they're watching, and then you could sell your paintings or whatever it is. You could commission your own artwork. Like, you can do it however you want to do, but I'm just throwing it out there. There are people who go on there and they sew, they crochet, they paint, they do their whatever it is their craft is, like live on the thing while they're selling their stuff. It's not just about crafting. There's people who sell clothes. There's people who sell toys. There's people who sell, I don't know, like Pez collectibles. There's all kinds of, there's people who just sell junk on there. And so you just have to go to the different categories, but there's a lot of, there. And then once you start getting in the community, like there's a lot of people who come to the same ones. Like I have the same repeat customers that come over and over, and I start to recognize their names and stuff. So, and the last time I was on there, I had like 8 people and 3 of us were teachers, or let me say former teachers. I can say that now. Let's see. Thank you for sharing your heart. Yes. Thank you for being here to listen. I just want to, and really, I'm not a counselor, I'm not a doctor, but really all I do is share my experiences that I've had and how it has affected my life. And usually there's somebody out there who's like, yep, I have experienced that. Yes, I have. I can relate to that. There's always something that someone can relate to whenever we share our experiences. And that's really what I want to do, is just share my experiences so that people, because when we become widowed, nobody can teach you how to become a widow, right? Like there's no handbook on how to become a widow. We have to learn as we go. And in the beginning, I found for me that I was always questioning myself, like, am I doing this right? Like, I don't feel like I'm doing this right. And then I started thinking, right for what? Like, there's no right way. But I kept feeling like I was failing as a widow. Like, can you win as a widow? No. But like, I just felt like I was in this uncharted territory doing things, and I didn't, like, you don't have goals. You don't know you don't even know what you know. You don't know what you don't know. And then once you start connecting with other widows and you realize, okay, so we're all kind of in this confusing stage together. We're all not knowing when it's time to throw their stuff away or to keep it, or to when we take our wedding rings off, and if we take them off at all, or do we change our last name, or do we do like all these things? Like, what are we supposed to do? We don't know. And we feel weird, and then we feel guilty. So when you start realizing that everybody else is feeling the same confusions, and everybody else is doing some other things or feeling the same way that you felt, you're like, okay, at least I'm not the only one who's doing this, who's saying this, who's feeling this, who's wanting to do this. And then other people are like, you always get judged by people who aren't widowed, because it's so easy for a non-widowed person to be like, why can't you just be happy? Like, get over it. Or, all those nice things that they like to tell us to do. Right. And so I used to make greeting cards, but now that my husband is gone, I have no interest in anything. It's only been 3 months for me. So Sharon, 3 months is, you're still in that fresh grief. That first 6 months or so is just like, your whole life is just turned upside down, and you're still trying to catch your bearings. It's like you fell off your surfboard and you're still under the wave trying to figure out where up is to catch your breath, right? So once you finally come up for air, you're still going to be volatile for a while, but like for a while, you're still tumbling underneath the wave trying to figure out, how do I get to the surface so I can take a breath? And so you're probably still in that phase right now. And so it's totally normal for you to not have mojo to do anything, and probably not even time do much of anything, because there's a lot of legal crap that has to be done. Maybe only one time, but paperwork and probating and legal crap and more paperwork, and you know how that all goes. And Kathy says she'd love to sell some paintings. Yeah. So Kathy, email me if you want to for information. Email me at leo@onehappywidow.com, and just remind me that you need the links to the application to Whatnot to become a seller, and I will give that to you. Rose Hood, I'm from Southern Cal. Good morning. So it's a little earlier for you. Yes, that'd be great. And so many and have done paint parties. See, you can have a paint party, and if you're doing it online, you can have, what do they call that? I don't remember. I know with sewing, we call them sip and sew. Like, you can drink your wine and you can sew your stuff. I'm not really a drinker, but I know that some people might want to do that, and you don't have to worry about going out to do it and then figuring out how to get home. You can do it in the presence of your own home. So, Barbara says, I love all you do. That's very nice. Thank you. Thank you. Hello from Norfolk, UK. Sorry, late to the live. No problem. So, Shell, this will be recorded and it'll go up on YouTube after this. So, anything that you want to catch in the beginning, you can rewatch. I'm glad this group accepts people like me, husband in a vegetative state since May after a cardiac arrest. So, Margaret, it sounds like you're already you're in that anticipatory grief. And so you're already grieving, but you're not actually widowed yet. And so, but your life has already changed in so much of a way that you're already feeling a lot of that grief and not knowing. And that in between stage, because that's where I was too for several months, that in between stage is so confusing because you're just like, you're not really widowed, but you're already sad, but you're trying not to be sad and you're trying to appreciate all the time you have with them. But the time you have with them is not the same because they're not the same. And, every time you see them, you're trying to feel happy and make the most of it, but you just feel sad because you're looking at them and you know that time is limited. All those things that go through your head. I'm sure you've thought a lot of those things. Eileen says, going back to work after my husband died was awful, but I had no choice. I had to do it. I'm glad I suffered through and did it. It was tough for me too, but honestly, it probably helped me keep my mind off of the grief. Like it kept me busy, but probably too much. Like it was a double-edged sword because it kept me busy and my mind off of things, but it also helped me to avoid feeling some of the things. And so sometimes when the grief came back, it came back with a vengeance. Like it would hit me at the dentist office or it hit me in the middle of a meeting at work. And so it can be, staying busy can be a good I can't think of the word. Menopause has me not able to think of big words sometimes, but a distraction can be a distraction. But sometimes distracting yourself too much and avoiding the grief too much and not actually allowing yourself to feel it can slow down your progress, can slow down the process, and it kind of puts you in a holding pattern on that grief. And trust me, the grief is going to find its way back to you at some point. I like saying that you have to let it back in on your own terms. So allow yourself some time to feel that grief, to feel the pain, to cry, to think about the painful memories because you've got to do it. And the reason why you have to do it is because you're going to do it anyway. And so you might as well decide when the best time to do it is and say, okay, now I'm going to do it now. And choose those moments because it gives you control over that. If you don't do that and you put it away and you shove it down, then it's going to make its way back to you. And when it does, you won't have control over it. And it could be at a time that is very inopportune. And so take control of your grief and you be the one who decides when you're going to feel those things and go through those times. And then allow yourself to have that staying busy to kind of keep your mind off of it so you don't obsess about it all the time. Let's see. Sip and paint. There you go. Sip and paint. Okay. I knew it was something like that. Thank you, Kathy. That's awful, Margaret Maida. Do you have any supportive people in your life? So Margaret, yeah, as far as going back to work, are you, yeah. And I know sometimes we have to, and then sometimes we want to, and sometimes it's a little bit of both. So, hopefully, and I've read a lot of things about women who've gone back because they either had to or wanted to, but then suddenly it's like your work performance is different, and then your bosses are getting on to you because you can't make deadlines the right way or whatever. Like I had those issues. I had trouble keeping paperwork and report cards and grades in on time and stuff like that. And it was the first time in my whole career that I had gotten in trouble for not meeting deadlines when I had before because it was just so hard for me to just juggle everything that I had going in my life. So, and I got written up for excessive absences, even though I didn't even use all my sick leave. Like I would just try to take half a day when my husband had chemo or something, or when he was sick and not feeling good, I'd just try to take just the afternoon instead of the whole day. And I didn't even use all my sick leave. I still had some left at the end of the year, but yet they still gave me a poor rating on my attendance because they said it was affecting student performance. And they're like, we totally see why. We totally know why. I was like, well, my husband was dying and he was, having chemotherapy and he was, had cancer. He was dying. So, I was trying my best. And they're like, we totally get it, but it still affected the kids' performance. And so we have to give you, a bad rating on that. And I'm thinking, so why didn't I just take FMLA then? I really just should have, but I couldn't afford it. I could have just taken FMLA and just left him without a teacher at all for 12 weeks while I spent all my time with him, but I wouldn't have been able to have any money. So Margaret says, I feel like a widow. He's not there anymore. Yes. So Margaret, if he's in that state where he can't, like, it's not a two-way relationship. So his body's still here. So you feel like you're still having to put your grief on a little bit of hold because you can't fully go into widowed grief mode because he's still hanging in there, and you still have the responsibilities. You can't start the process of healing and going through those first stages of grief with all that paperwork and all that stuff that you have to do and all those hurdles that you have to jump through because you're waiting, because you're going to have to do it, but you are not doing it yet because it's still not time. And so, and then in your mind, you have this idea of how you think it's going to be. You're like, well, okay, so once he dies, this is going to happen. And then I'm going to do this. And then this is going to happen. You have it all figured out in your head. Like, exactly what's going to happen and how you're going to feel. And then a lot of times with me, at least, it wasn't like that. Like it didn't pan out the way that I, in my mind, had played it out. And so I was like, wow, that didn't really go like I thought. Whether it's good or bad, I'm just saying, like, I had it, like I felt like I had it all figured out. Like I knew what was going to happen. First step, second step, third step. And then I was like, wow, I didn't think about this, and I didn't consider that, and I didn't realize this. And it's still, it's still tough in different ways. Well, Margaret, he's not. My husband was very ill for 3 years, and I had to caregive. I lost my husband and gained a cancer patient. Yes. So Eileen, I went through that as well. So I mean, I did have help, and so I was thankful for that. And my oldest daughter was able to help me with the kids, and my mother-in-law, Dewey's mom. If y'all watch videos about that, about when I talk about Momo. I'm lucky that she was there to help out with, a lot of the driving him around and taking him to places, but emotionally, she basically held us all hostage and was very selfish in a lot of things that she did. So it was a dysfunctional situation from the get-go, and it still is, to be honest. Margaret, you have widowed friends, so that's good. It's always nice to have friends that know what you're going through, because it's tough to talk to somebody about the loss of your spouse when they haven't, because it just makes them feel uncomfortable and then they want to leave. So yeah, there's no great outcome, but it's just one of those things where you just have to go one day at a time and just do what you can. So, all right, ladies, thank you so much for coming in. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up so I don't hang out too long. And just feel free to email me if you have questions. Join the group if you have not already joined the group, and just look out for, if you have ideas on how you would like things to go as far as resources and community stuff, then just let me know, because I'm going to be getting ready to put some things together. The first thing I want to do is I want to start coaching. So I'm going to be doing some small group coaching to where it'll be 4 or 5 people in together, weekly coaching. And so it'll just be, and I'm just going to limit it to 4 or 5 people, and it won't be live like this. It'll be live, like people will be able to talk and not just chat. So we'll all be in a Zoom together. So we'll be able to speak and have conversation, and, kind of go through, we'll have a little small group together that we can talk about our situations and things like that. So that's going to be the first thing that I put together. I keep saying I'm going to do it. I was hoping to do it this month. It just didn't happen. But honestly, over the holidays is when I'm going to be able to get all that stuff in place. So, all righty, ladies, thank you so much, and spread the word. We'll talk about it in the group, but I plan on doing this every Monday at noon Eastern time, lunch with Leo. And if you have topics that you'd like me to discuss beforehand, go ahead and let me know so I can prepare whatever I need to prepare, so I know what I'm going to be discussing and talking about. And I hope that you ladies take care. We've got people all over the world today. So that's amazing how we can still connect with each other, even though we don't even live in the same area. So that's, in that way, the internet is a blessing. And so I appreciate all of you. Thank you for coming in, and I will see you next time. Let me see. I'm going to check one more time. Helpful site you have. Thank you. Part of moving forward after my wife passed away a year and a half ago comes from you. Oh, thank you, Mike. That's very nice. The loss of a loved one in old age is different from the loss of a young one. Yes, and Mike, my grandmother, my grandfather just died a few weeks ago, and so now my grandmother's a new widow, and her, her grief process is a lot different from mine. But she's still in the denial phase, and so I'm having to. But she's actually come to me and asked me some questions about some things, so I've even been able to help her through some of this stuff. So, um, all right, 2 a.m. for you. You couldn't sleep. Oh my goodness. All right. And Barbara says she's a caregiver to her husband with Alzheimer's, also feels like a widow for sure. So even though he's here, he's not my husband. Yes, that does make sense, Barbara. So I totally get that. Um, and we will be here for you. We're here for you now. And then as those things change and as things update and your husband transitions and Margaret as well as your husband's transition over to different phases of life and end of life care and those types of things, that we will be here for you as well. So welcome to the group. And if y'all have any questions or anything, feel free to let me know and reach out. All right. I'm going to end it here and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.